it didn't.
You had a song or something you were going to play.
Yeah,
right?
so
Okay.
it was just music, and let me set it up for you, and then we'll go on to Ann.
Can you sing it?
I'm a halfway baritone tenor, but unfortunately I think I'm a bass right now. This particular picture, I don't need to explain to you other than it's a family having dinner, it's the holiday season, and what's in the forefront is yet an empty chair, and it's how does a family cope with that empty chair when it's a pretty new occurrence, or in the case of my family, we have 2 empty chairs, but it's been 10 and 5 years respectfully. So, and Ann is going to be helping us do that. So Ann, without the music, the stage is yours.
Oh, I'm on. Okay. Can I turn the light on?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to be looking at the screen.
No, we're not.
There, that's better. Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ann Allen, and my business is Heal Your Grief, Heal Your Life. And I help successful business people and professionals who struggle with keeping it all together after they've had a loss. And after they work with me, they know what to do, how to heal their grief and their heartache, and start living again. So what we're going to be talking about today is indeed the empty chair, or the empty space for that matter. Now, some of you aren't going to like me because we're dredging up stuff that you probably would rather not talk about. But we are going to talk about it because it's something that people need to understand as normal and natural, and it might give you some ideas of how to deal with it. So first of all, let's talk about the holidays. We've got the holidays coming up. We've got the holidays, we've got celebration. What does that mean to you guys? Give me some words. What does holiday celebration time mean to you guys?
Turkey.
Chaos.
Oh, chaos, turkey.
So I usually ask the question, are we hosting everybody at our house?
Ah, okay. All right. What else?
Traditions.
Tradition?
Well, and for me, it's my family all getting together.
Family. Yeah. What else?
It can be a stressful time.
Stress, no doubt. Yeah. What else? What else does?
Which family gets us this year?
Sorry.
Which family gets us this year? We have
Oh, which family gets to host? Yeah. What other things come up for you when you see the words holidays and celebration together?
Fun.
Fun, hopefully. Yeah.
Memories.
Pardon?
Memories.
Memories. Yeah. What else? For me, it's actually a time of sadness. Not just because of grief and loss, but I actually have severe social anxieties. A lot of people don't believe me when I tell them that. I can get up and speak in front of 5,000 people, but you put me in a small room where it's a social thing, and it doesn't work for me. So it's really hard for me to say yes to all those invitations. So it creates extra added stress for me that I have to find an excuse not to attend. Okay, so different things for different people, yeah? So holidays and celebration could be a good thing, but it may not. Now, unfortunately, as Brad was talking about, 5 and 10 years respectively for the people who won't be at your table. And let's not just limit it to people. Let's limit it to our little fur babies as well, because lots of us have our pets that won't be there. Or I also want you to think about, would you rather be in a different place? Now for me, I'm kind of getting drawn to want to go back to my homeland, to New Zealand. So there's that kind of a draw. See what I'm saying? We think of loss as just being death, divorce, all of those things, but it could be that you can't be present in another place or another time. Make sense? So for some people, this could be their first year. Very, very hard. But if I ask you, how many of you anticipate that you're still going to feel sad about someone, your loved one, who's not going to be there this year? How many of you would that affect? Yeah. How many of you have heard the saying, time heals all wounds? Okay. Has time taken away that sadness or that heartache? Or has it just made it a little bit easier for you to deal with? Kind of rubs the edges off, doesn't it? Makes it just a little bit easier to actually deal with. So, what kind of reminders can come up and be triggers for us? Now, we've talked about photos, things like that. What other kind of reminders can come up and kind of aggravate us and think, oh my gosh,
Familiar activities that you did together.
Right, the things you did together, maybe you made the candied yams or something together, or set the table. What other kinds of things can come up? What other kinds of triggers? It doesn't have to be just around the holiday, but what other kind of triggers come up that remind us about people or loved ones?
Letting your dog lick the plate after you're done, you know.
I love it. Thank you for being real. Yes. I love it. Yes. Here, take this. Doesn't have to worry so much about the dishwasher. Okay, what other kinds of things? And actually, while we're talking about food, what about all of our senses? How many of you have instant memories when you smell a perfume? When you smell food cooking? When you taste something? Yeah. When you feel something? Yeah, our senses actually help us navigate through life. If we didn't have them, we wouldn't be able to live. But when it comes to grief, they are triggered very, very easily. And all it takes is one little trigger, and that's what can set us off, unfortunately. So why do we struggle? Why do we struggle with these triggers? Why do we struggle with this whole thing called the holidays and celebration? Why is that such a problem for us? Bill?
A lot of families have high expectations, some ideals, some fantasies, some myth that, you know, it's going to be great to get the family together, and they forget very selectively about some issues, problems, substance abuses, etc. I can especially talk about my in-laws. I won't talk about mine, I'll talk about my wife's family.
Can I use this, Brad?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, and guys, that piece of paper's for you to write your notes and stuff down, so go for it if you want to.
Ours are just two opinion aids, that's all.
Expectations is a big deal. How do people expect you to deal, or how do people expect you to act or react if you have lost someone or something that's important to you? How do they expect you to behave over the holiday series? What are their expectations of you?
Suck it up.
Suck it up.
Move on.
Move on.
Be normal.
Be normal. How many of you know that someone's going to walk in the room and everybody's going to roll their eyes like, oh God, now we have to listen to a 10-minute dissertation about mum not being here or whatever it might be, and we want to avoid those people. Yeah?
Well, I think sometimes people don't want to hear something from somebody else because they're having trouble dealing it with themselves.
Exactly. So we all have expectations of how we want people to be. We all want that Thanksgiving dinner to be fabulous, don't we? We all want everybody to just be on their best behavior. Yeah,
Or you feel guilty being happy and jovial when people are expecting you to feel sad and depressed.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to give you a really quick story. One of my friends, for those of you who get my newsletter, you saw the beautiful dog Gertie. She just passed, gorgeous little pit bull girl. And my friend Maggie, she used to be a colleague of mine as well, and we were talking the other day. I said, how are you doing, Maggie? She said, I'm doing really good, because I encouraged them to talk to Gertie and do all the things that would help them. She said, I'm dealing with it a lot better than I thought I would. And she had expectations of how she thought she should be grieving for her dog. So we all have expectations of what we want from other people and how we expect them to behave. Makes sense, right? So it makes it really hard for us, and we struggle because of those expectations. And what happens when we don't live up to those people's expectations? What happens when we don't behave the way that they want to or want us to?
Judgment and criticism.
Judgment. Yeah, how does that make us feel? You know they're thinking it. You can tell by their face, by their body language, right? You know they're feeling it or thinking it. So what can that lead to? If we know that sorry, what's your name, sir?
Peter.
Peter. Okay, so Peter, let's say you're my uncle, and I know that you are going to tell a story about Aunt Mary and how she died a tragic death and everything like that, but I expect that's what's going to happen, right? Now, if for some reason you heard a lot of people talking about you telling that story over and over again, what might happen if you shut down and can't tell that story?
Oh, I don't know. I might feel like I was cut off a little bit.
Right, right. What happens when we can't tell our stories? What happens when we're not in a safe place where we can't actually say what we need to say? We stuff them down.
Anxiety.
Pardon?
You can develop
You
anxiety.
can develop anxiety. Yeah, what else can happen when we don't get to say what we truly need to say, whether you've heard it a million times or not? What else can happen?
Repression and then depression.
Absolutely, and that all leads to this very, very sad place of isolation. How many of you feel isolated because you can't say what you need to say about your grief, how you feel? Yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Most people who are grieving live in a state of isolation because they can't talk about how they feel. That's one of the things we work on with the grief recovery method, that we actually help you to be able to say those things in a safe place. Okay, you all have a little heart in front of you, a heart. Sorry, I don't know how to say it with the American accent. A heart.
Don't change a thing.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, so you have one of these in front of you if you still can't understand me. Now, what I want you to do, without thinking about it, please don't think about it. I want you to take the first name of a loved one that won't be with you this holiday, and I want you to write it on your heart. Don't think about it, just do it, please. You might be surprised the name that comes up. And I'll play along too.
Did I get a heart?
Oh, yes. Of course. Is it green? Oh, wait. Oh, you got one. Christine, I got it. Oh, wait. Would you want a green one or what?
No, Christine,
What?
I've got
You
everything.
don't care? I love it, Maureen. She doesn't care. Okay. All right. So just write the name of a loved one that won't be with you this holiday season, please, without thinking about it. Don't. Shouldn't take you more than 5 seconds. Okay. And the reason I get you to do this, a couple of things. I'm going to talk about the second reason just a little bit. But it's very important to honor our loved ones that aren't with us anymore. And by saying their name or by writing them down, we actually do that. I'm a firm believer in honoring them. Now, some cultures, you are asked not to talk about their name after they die. In fact, you can't say their name after they die. But I think we're pretty safe in this room. So how this works, anyone can share. You don't have to. It's not expected of you. But I'll go first. I wrote the name Prinny. Prinny was my little 18-year-old kitty who died a couple of years ago. So she is the one that I wish was with me for the holidays. Now, anybody else want to share their names? Yes, Barbara.
Well, I just put down Mom.
Mom. Okay, that says it all. Okay. Anybody else want to share the name they wrote?
The 5-year period I spoke to above, that was Edna,
Edna.
my mother.
Edna, lovely. Thank you. And do you want to say your mom's name to honor your mom, Barbara?
Lucille.
Lucille. And Nathan, you had your
My
hand?
grandfather passed away last year.
What's his name, dear?
Don, she was here.
Dawn. Okay. Bill?
My mother, Sheila.
Your mother, Sheila.
Sandy Wilson,
Sandy Wilson.
My dad.
Lewis.
Lewis. Yeah. Anyone else? And it's not required. Yes,
I
Shannon.
put Grandma and Grandpa B. My dad's parents are both deceased, but I think of them as a package deal. They have a couple of years of each other, but
I
yeah.
love that, a package
Yeah.
deal.
My mom, June.
Your mom, June. Yeah. I wish you could see your faces right now. There's so much love in the room. It's really wonderful. I love it. Thank you for sharing. That's really very important. And just hearing you say those names is really, really lovely. Now you have a piece of paper there in front of you, and I want you to write down, please don't, this is not writing a great American novel, it's just writing down some thoughts. I want you to write down, if this loved one that you have on your heart was here right now, what would you say to them? What would you say to them?
In perspective to that meal or just?
No, just to anything. I love you, I hate you. You were mean and nasty. I think you're awesome. I wish we could have had more time. What's the one thing that you would want to say to them that you just never got to say? Some people it might be goodbye. Be honest. And again, you don't have to share this, so, be honest with yourself. This is not about sugarcoating. This is real life. people finishing up. Okay, I'm going to go first. So I would say to Prinny, Prinny, I love you, Mummy misses you, and I wish you were there to share Thanksgiving with me like we used to. I would make a turkey roast and make a little plate up for her. We won't tell anyone that I gave her human food, you know, we'll just keep that under wraps. But as she knows, Mummy has now just gone vegan, so turkey's not going to be on the menu, but I've got an awesome breaded tofurkey stuffed roast with gravy in the fridge. And I know she would love it anyway, but I just wish she were there, just so I could pet her as she lays down beside me on the couch or comes to sit on my lap. Anybody else want to share? You don't have to if you don't want to. Yes,
I will.
okay. And the reason I get you to do this, a couple of things. I'm going to talk about the second reason just a little bit. But it's very important to honor our loved ones that aren't with us anymore. And by saying their name or by writing them down, we actually do that. I'm a firm believer in honoring them. Now, some cultures, you are asked not to talk about their name after they die. In fact, you can't say their name after they die, but I think we're pretty safe in this room. So how this works, anyone can share. You don't have to. It's not expected of you. But I'll go first. I wrote the name Prinny. Prinny was my little 18-year-old kitty who died a couple of years ago. So she is the one that I wish was with me for the holidays. Now, anybody else want to share their names? Yes, Barbara.
Well, I just put down Mom.
Mom. Okay, that says it all.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody else want to share the name they wrote?
The 5-year period I spoke to above, that was Edna,
Edna.
my mother.
Edna, lovely. Thank you. And do you want to say your mum's name to honor your mum, Barbara?
Lucille.
Lucille. And Nathan, you had your
My
hand?
grandfather passed away last year.
What's his name, dear?
Don Schuster.
Dawn. Okay. Bill?
My mother Sheila.
Your mother, Sheila.
Sandy Wilson,
Sandy Wilson.
My dad.
Lewis.
Lewis. Yeah. Anyone else? And it's not required. Yes,
I
Shannon.
put Grandma and Grandpa B. My dad's parents are both deceased, but I think of them as a package deal. They have a couple years of each other, but
I
yeah.
love that, a package deal.
My mom, June.
Your mom, June, yeah. I wish you could see your faces right now. There's so much love in the room. It's really wonderful. I love it. Thank you for sharing. That's really very important. And just hearing you say those names is really, really lovely. Now you have a piece of paper there in front of you, and I want you to write down, please don't, this is not writing the great American novel, it's just writing down some thoughts. I want you to write down, if this loved one that you have on your heart was here right now, what would you say to them? What would you say to them?
In perspective to that meal or just?
No,
in
just
general?
anything. I love you, I hate you. You were mean and nasty, I think you're awesome. I wish we could have had more time. What's the one thing that you would want to say to them that you just never got to say? Some people it might be goodbye. Be honest, and again, you don't have to share this, so, you know, be honest with yourself. This is not about sugarcoating, this is real life. Just got a couple of people finishing up. go first. So I would say to Prinny, Prinny, I love you, Mommy misses you, and I wish you were there to share Thanksgiving with me like we used to. I would make a turkey roast and make a little plate up for her. We won't tell anyone that I gave her human food, you know, we'll just keep that under wraps. But as she knows, Mommy has now just gone vegan, so turkey's not going to be on the menu, but I've got an awesome breaded tofurkey stuffed roast with gravy in the fridge. And I know she would love it anyway. But I just wish she were there, just so I could pet her as she lays down beside me on the couch or comes to sit on my lap. Anybody else want to share? You don't have to if you don't want to. Yes.
I would one another the last 10 years of your life. And I'm also so glad that I got to hold your hand and give you a kiss as you left.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you very much. And what was your mom's name?
Lucille.
Lucille. Anybody else want to share?
So, at 95, the words "let's have tea" spoke volumes of what my mother expected from me. And you have to unpack that to get to the point where she was beyond all the other kind of stuff. Let's just sit here and talk or be.
I don't know what it meant to you and your mum, but I know what it meant to me and my mum, and it was pretty precious stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pleased you had that. Very pleased you had that. Anybody else want to share? Yeah.
I just recently lost a very dear friend. Her name was Sandy Wilson, and I was involved with her and her mother and through her dying process. And I just wanted to know how much I admired her and her sacrifice and her care and her always giving. Giving. She was a remarkable woman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bill?
I think any of you heard me talk a month ago or before, won't find this any surprise. Mom, I miss you. I am who I am and became and do what I do because of you. It's in your honor and memory, and the pain of loss became my passion. And she would have signed off lovingly. Bill.
Oh, beautiful. Anyone else?
Yeah, my grandfather, I always give him a hug. I love him. But he at the end of his days, he didn't want a funeral. His thing, he says he wants everybody to have a drink on him. Because that's one thing he loved doing, is being around friends and his family.
I don't know if I can speak this, but I will try. Even though I know my mother loved me and I loved her, I really told her that I wish that she could have really cared for me after she translated and just touched base, gave me love. Instead it was, I'm done, I'm moving on. And it would have just been nice to have that goodbye message.
I hear that. Thank you. Anyone else? I'll make sure everybody gets a chance to say something if they want to. Okay, so let's talk about traditions. Why do we get stuck in traditions?
Because they feel good.
Because they feel good. Do we get stuck? Are we captive to them, or do we create them? Do they become a burden? Are they something that could be good for us? What do you think?
Depends on the tradition.
It depends on the tradition. Yeah. You know, as human beings, we have to have ritual. Have a look at, and any anthropologist will tell you, through time immemorial, all of our cultures have traditions, and that's where we all have rituals. That's where our traditions come from, because they usually mean something to us. But what can happen when we get caught up in a tradition around the holiday times, and one or even more of our loved ones aren't going to be there to share it with us? Has that caused problems for you before, or challenges for you before? Is it likely to cause a challenge or a problem for you? What do you think?
Well, I know in our family, my mother was the center of the traditions. And with her gone and the rest of us spread around the country, there's no longer tradition. And so it does lead to that isolation, because I usually spend the holidays by myself.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It can definitely lead back to isolation, because now your family, instead of being cohesive, they're kind of spread around. What other kind of impact can tradition have on us, especially if it's changed or altered in some way? Amanda?
Well, in my family, I think it keeps it strong because, you know, minus dad, minus mom, what my mom was able to do, what my dad was. So if we're keeping up the traditions, then it kind of keeps their little spirit alive. So.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So how many here have, and you don't have to answer, but how many of you here have those traditions, thank you Maureen, because you gave a great example, but where those traditions have just gone by the wayside and, you know, you really miss that. Yeah, you're actually grieving for traditions, believe it or not. So what about starting some new traditions? Do you think that could be possible? What do you think? Yeah, yeah, Shannon.
Well, when I married my husband, he had a 5-year-old son, so of course he's a little older now, and he has a wife and kids of his own. So that's a whole new chapter when your kids are getting married and having kids, and then so not everybody's together like they used to be, and you just have to be really careful not to get your feelings hurt when they say, no, we want to just spend it with our family or this or that or the other thing. So we've created a new tradition that we all go out to beaches on Christmas Eve, and then everyone has the rest of, you know, their Christmas Day or whatever to do what they want. So
That's actually really smart. I think it's a great idea. I'm going to use that one.
I made a new tradition. My grandma used to do a lot of canning, and every time I came to her house, she'd have a closet full of cans, and she had pickles, she had apricots. Well, I started that up, and every time I do that, I just think of her. It's a good tradition.
That's wonderful. So that's where you get
Yeah.
it from. I was wondering because not everybody pickles or cans. Yeah. Well, where I come from, we call it bottling, actually. But you know, so when I first heard the word canning, it's like, what do you mean canning? It's a bottle. It's not a can. But anyway, I've learned to live with it. So, so a good time to think about setting up some new traditions, maybe. Yeah, what's wrong with that? But here's the deal. If we're going to set up new traditions, let's do something that's comfortable for everybody. Let's make it okay. Let's have some safe words, like it's okay to say mum's name or the little kid's name or the little pet's name or whomever it is. Make it safe for everybody because otherwise people won't want to join in. Make some sense? I just like to put that out there because it could be something that could really help you and your family. So let me tell you what's been happening while we've been sitting here. From the moment you picked up that heart and I asked you to write a name down, you've been doing a relationship review. You're having thoughts coming up, memories coming up, things that were good, things that weren't so good, things that you said or wished you hadn't said, things that were done or wished hadn't been done, all of those things. You're probably thinking about all the hopes, dreams, and expectations that weren't met within that relationship. Or you probably wish that things had been different, better, or more. Yeah? You're all nodding. Yeah, it happens. It's called a relationship review. And it's that relationship review that keeps us stuck in our grief. It's that relationship review that causes the loop of those conversations that go around in our head. You know, when you're driving along, you're having a talk to the imaginary person who died maybe 50 years ago or something, you know, you're talking away to them because you want it to end differently, but you know it's not because you don't have the chance to because they're gone kind of thing. Yeah, that's a relationship review. And that's what keeps us stuck. Because at the very end of it all, grief is an accumulation of undelivered communication. And that's why when we work on it in our in the grief recovery program, we really look under all the rocks. We look at the whole relationship. We look at it 3D. We make sure we squeeze out every little thing, anything that wasn't met, anything that we wished had been different, better, more. Because only then can you really truly be recovered from it. Okay, so you will see also on the back of this sheet is a little blurb about pop-up healing sanctuaries, which I have developed and I'm putting together over the holiday season. This is designed for people who just don't know what to do with their grief. They're not ready to do the grief work perhaps, or they don't have time or whatever it might be, but they want to know how they can just at least take a deep breath and not be freaking out about what lies in front of them. So this, I've laid it all out here for you so that you know what it's all about. For those of you who get my newsletter, You will see I'm going to be sending out emails a couple of days before each one of them. I'm still showing up some dates. If anybody wants to go onto my mailing list to get my newsletter that comes twice a month, it has all of the upcoming workshops, events, and I usually have a free meditation group once a month, but I won't this month because I'm going to be out and about doing the pop-up healing sanctuaries. So if it looks like something you might like, the first one is coming up this week in New Renaissance in Portland from 6:30 to 8:30, but there will be more coming along. But if that doesn't suit you or for whatever reason, please let somebody know about it. I've tried to price it very fairly for people so that they can come along and get something out of it. But most people just love the guided meditation. We often get messages coming through I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it often happens for people. So does anybody have any questions at all? Has this been helpful for you? Yeah. Great. Okay. Anybody got any questions? Anything? And it's not politics.
When we talk about the relationship review, how can you, and this is probably something you bring up in the workshop, there is always different circumstances of the loss.
Absolutely.
Some are sudden, some are short
Yes.
in illness, and then they're gone. There's like Alzheimer's, long and drawn down.
Correct.
You have the long goodbye.
Correct.
How does that fit into all this?
Very good question. Okay, so I'm going to start where you ended with Alzheimer's. So a lot of people, when their loved one develops Alzheimer's, they have to deal with the fact that their relationship as it once was has now changed or altered. Anytime a relationship or identity changes, we actually grieve for it, believe it or not.
And a relationship.
So, correct, yes. So they're grieving for their change in identity, they're grieving for the change in the relationship with the person, and once the person passes, now they have to deal with the death of them as well. So I'm going to ask a question that sounds very harsh, but if one of your loved ones was murdered, a very violent end, I think we can all agree, would we miss them any less? No. Would we have other emotions that come up because of that, like anger and... Yes, of course we would, but the pain remains the same. Does that answer your question? It doesn't...
And in some ways, maybe not better or worse, but very different because you don't have that closure.
Well, the thing is, if we're looking for closure, we might want to look at a different word for it, because closure means different things to different people. And we can talk about completion, we can talk about recovery, whatever it is. But the thing remains, if you still have undelivered communications with your loved one, you are not going to be complete, you're not going to be recovered. It's only when you really have been able to deliver those communications that you're going to be recovered. Is that making sense? Yeah, Maureen.
So we're talking a lot about grief, and as people are either passing or moving towards that point, what about grief in our life? Like you said, we're transitioning through different things, whether it's the loss of a job or divorce, or you're moving into something new, but you're having to grieve and let go of either who you were or your changes.
Absolutely.
You're working with people to help them through that also.
Absolutely, and yes, you and I have shared that, and that's indeed where I personally am having to let go of a lot of stuff that just no longer serves me personally. Loss can be a number of different things. There's over 42 different kinds of losses, and the definition of loss is a change in or end of a behavior related to a person, place, or thing. So that's a very long-winded way of saying what a loss is, but just think about it. Anytime you change your behavior towards someone, or let's say you now move to another home, now you have to find another way to get there, another way to get to work. Anytime there is a change in our lives that is significant to us, and that's the kicker, if it's significant to us, we will grieve for that loss. Make sense? Does that answer your question?
So could you set up the scenario that it's the workplace where the loss occurs?
Sure.
A boss, a co-worker?
Sure. So is someone getting fired or?
Okay, anything of that sort. I'm thinking of, we do a lot of business networking, we do a lot of business either in our own offices or somebody else's. What happens with the grief process when we're thinking just about work?
Okay, and I'm just going to switch those words out if I can just a little bit, because people do think of grief as being a process. It's not. It's an emotional reaction. We try and intellectualize grief, but you cannot intellectualize it. You must feel it. And that's why we get into trouble here and we struggle, because so many of us will do so many things to avoid feeling. We stuff things down all the time. Grief has to be experienced emotionally. You can write down all the words you want, get very, very flowery and everything, but it's not going to help. Okay, Brad, you're fired. How do you feel right now? Probably not so good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you're going to have a little bit of a reaction?
Oh, yes.
Okay. What's the first thing that people say happens when you lose something or someone? What's the first thing they say?
Disbelief.
Yes. So I heard someone say denial. I don't use the word disbelief. Most of us aren't. I don't think there was any denial that I just fired you, right?
No denial.
Okay, but you're probably in disbelief, like, but
I'm
Ann,
feeling a little empty right at the moment.
yeah, you gave me a wonderful review, kind of like gave me a perfect review, but now you fired me. Okay, so where does that leave you, Brad? Let's break this down. Let's unpack all of that. So right now you have an initial reaction, yeah?
Right?
Now, is his reaction going to be different to my reaction if I just got fired? Yes, it is. It could be similar, but every relationship is unique, no exception. So how I felt about my job and my boss, totally different to how he feels about his job and his boss, could be similar. So you're probably feeling a little shaken right now, I would imagine, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what does this mean for you? You're fired. What does that mean for you in your life? Loss of income, loss of stability, loss of being the breadwinner if you take on that mantle in your home, in your relationship. How does that impact everybody else now? You have to go home and tell your wife you've been fired. What's her reaction going to be?
Coping with her feeling of
Right.
being at a loss.
How is she going to react to that? If you have children, is it going to affect them? If you have pets, is it going to affect them? Is it going to affect you when you go to networking meetings that you've been fired? Is it going to do a number on your confidence?
Well, I think you're going to be a little defensive or protect yourself.
There you go. Yeah, Bill.
There's also the loss of your work family. You spend so much time-
Absolutely. Yeah, the work husband, or it took me forever to figure out what people were talking about when they were saying this. What, are they having an affair? I didn't understand that. But yeah, but you can see it's not just you. It has that ripple effect. And it will affect anyone that you're in contact with that is significant, has a significant relationship with you. Is that making sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, imagine you've just been fired and you're now going to a networking gig. You might be a bit embarrassed to tell people that you're fired. You may not want to tell them. You might want to keep it a secret. You're trying to hold it all together, but you really can't. You're doing the best you can because you want to keep up appearances. I'm fine. I've got it all together, but your life is really falling desperately apart because how do I get the money? All of those things. Makes sense, right? Yeah, good question. Did that answer your question?
And then the other hole is, if I didn't get fired, then I walk into the office and somebody is deceased, and how do you, right? A coworker, chairman of the board, or somebody important like that.
It happens. It
Yeah.
happens. Yeah. So what do you do? How do you deal with that? Whatever comes to mind. Seriously, there's no script for any of this guy. I once had a lady call me and she said, Ann, wait, it wasn't that long ago. She said, Ann, I need your services sooner than I thought. My children's father just died and the kids were in different locations, and she said, I want to know what to say because I want to get it perfect. I said, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to tell you something that's going to upset you right now. You're not going to get this perfect. You will mess it up. There's no way you can get this perfect because you're dealing with people and you're dealing with emotions. It's just not going to happen. Grief is messy, it's a pain in the butt, it's completely inconvenient, and we don't want to have to deal with it. So we muddle through the best we can. It's the truth. I get in people's faces, I get very passionate about it, to get in people's faces. But I do want to end this up with something. I want you to write down now something funny about the person or the loved one that you have there. Something funny. Just end this on a positive note. Something funny about them. Let's keep it PG if you're sharing it. Something funny. What's funny about the loved one that you wrote on there? It doesn't have to be the one you wrote on the heart. There's no rules here. Take those hearts and put them somewhere where they're special too. If you want more, I have more. Some people like to hang them on a tree. Use them as a bookmark. put them in a little memento box. Okay, I'll start and share. So I believe that animals are a really good judge of character, especially cats. Now, I was dating this guy called Richard, and he used to wear this hat, and when he came over to visit, and he took his hat off one day and he left it down by the back door. And we went upstairs and we had coffee, and we came back down, and he went to put on his hat. And Brittany had pooped in it. Well, do you think I could keep a straight face? Absolutely not. I mean, I was trying, he was just livid. You know, your cat, and it's like, don't you start dissing my cat because you're out of here. The moment I looked at Brittany, I said, you know what? I really should have gotten a clue. When you did that, I really should have gotten a clue. It would have saved Mommy a whole lot of heartache. So who else wants to share some funny stuff about their people or their loved ones? Anyone?
My mother would reject gifts unless they were handmade because she had so many store-bought gifts throughout her life. She lived till 95, so she just put her foot down and said,
Wow, I love that. I love that because so many people don't want handmade gifts. Anyone else got something funny to share about their loved one? Yeah, Barbara.
Well, my mom was an avid LA Lakers fan, and up until practically before she passed away, well, till she would watch the Lakers games, and she would scold the players when they made a mistake and tell them how they should have done it. And she canceled the social hour that she always held in her apartment in the retirement home she lived in the last 10 years, where she had people in every night except when there was a Lakers game.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, my mom was a football fan, the All Blacks. I didn't speak while the footy game was on. Anyone else want to share any last minute fun things? Any little anecdotes? Bill?
I had a struggle with this because my mom didn't have much of a sense of humor. So it's more about her or at her. She was always late. And when she finally passed away after the long illness, hung on a lot longer than expected. She died 2 days before our planned trip to Costa Rica, which I really needed badly. So what I like to say is, for once in her life, she was on time.
I love it. I love it.
Gave me just enough time.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Anyone else? Last chance? Say something funny? Well, I wish you all good health, happiness, and prosperity in this upcoming season and always. And may you go out and find some joy and happiness in your life. Thank you very much.